I'm your host, Annie Bowles, and this is News du Jour. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the News du Jour. So happy Wednesday. We have a more, not necessarily lighthearted, but celebrity-focused News du Jour episode for you guys, just as a little hump day treat for you to get you through your week. So we are going to have one non-celebrity story here at the top. It's just a mini story, but then we have 3 celebrity stories to go over today that are pretty in-depth. So let's get into it. So right here at the top for that mini story I was just talking about, Social Security will now allow people to choose their own gender. As of Wednesday, the Social Security Administration will allow Americans to select the gender that aligns with their identity. As of now, they will have the options of male or female, but the administration continues to explore the idea of an option for gender X as well for non-binary individuals, and they're going to make a decision about this soon. This is an effort by the federal government to make paperwork more inclusive, as well as to have people's documents match their outward appearance. So again, this is something that was announced in March. If you guys weren't following the podcast, then we did talk about it when it was announced, but now they're fully enacting this. So this is something that you can do if you are, transitioning from one gender to the next. So like I said, the rest of the episode is going to be focused on 3 celebrity stories. First up, we are discussing Matthew Perry and all of his headline-making news lately. So you may have noticed that Matthew Perry, who played Chandler Bing on Friends for years, 10 years actually, has been in the news quite a bit lately. And you may be like, why is he suddenly, all these different news stories about him? Well, it's because he has produced a memoir outlining his long-term addiction. And this is to alcohol as well as drugs. The tell-all memoir has a ton of revelations in it as well about other celebrities. And I just wanted to kind of run through the memoir as a whole and some of the biggest revelations that stood out to us. There's a lot here though, so buckle up, especially if you are a Friends fan, because, some of it's pretty heartbreaking. Here we go. So Matthew Perry was only 14 years old when he began drinking. He eventually worked up to taking Vicodin, 55 Vicodin a day, you guys, 55. Whew. He also abused Oxycontin and Xanax. Jennifer Aniston called him out for his addiction in a loving way, he said, which is what a good friend does, you guys. The entire cast knew that he was struggling, and they had multiple different, interventions and confrontations with him, trying to get him help. He did the episode where he married Monica and then got driven straight to a treatment center right afterwards. He was at the height of his career, but his lowest low is what he said, which is just, I think that to me, as a Friends fan and avid follower, I just feel like that was truly the pinnacle of that show. And to think about that just blows my mind. And the fact that we're just now hearing about it. I mean, that cast was very loyal to him, if you think about it that way, because this is the first I've ever heard of that. He also said that he broke up with Julia Roberts because he did not feel good enough for her. And he was positive that she was going to dump him and break his heart. And so he was literally that insecure that he was dating Julia Roberts and broke up with her over his own insecurities. And he said the look of confusion on her face, he'll never forget it. And it just, that one broke me. He also says that he spent about $9 million trying to get sober, which obviously is such a privilege. There's a lot of people who don't have nearly that money to spend on getting sober and who end up in much more dire situations because of the lack of funding that they have to get out of the hole that they're in. He has done more than 25 different drug detoxes and spent more than half his life in drug treatment facilities. The addiction ravaged his body. He spent 2 weeks in a coma, experienced an exploded colon, and had over a dozen stomach surgeries. He was given a 2% chance of living after his colon exploded, and he actually had to learn how to walk again. He lost all of his top teeth and suffers from slurred speech to this day. He has now been sober for about 18 months. He ended his book with saying, quote, "There is a hell. Don't let anyone tell you different. I've been there. It exists. End of discussion." End quote. Pretty heartbreaking, especially for such a lovable character on the show. He reportedly wrote the book at only 2 hours a day, saying that it was just too hard to open old wounds for longer than that at a time. But he says that he feels a lot better now that it's all out in the open and he's able to talk about it. He always seemed disconnected from the other three lead cast members of Friends, and now we know why. It does seem like he's doing a lot better now, though. He put a pickleball court in the backyard and employs a few staff members to help keep him on the up and up. You can watch his interview with Diane Sawyer online on the subject of his memoir. But if you or someone you love is struggling with addiction, please don't wait to get help. You can call 1-800-662-4357 for help right away. And next up in our celebrity news, we have to cover, of course, Leslie Jordan's passing. So as you have probably heard by now, Leslie Jordan passed away at age 67. He was unfortunately involved in a deadly car accident in Hollywood on Monday. If you're not familiar, Leslie Jordan was a beloved actor who stood 4'11" and sported both sassy gay and Southern twangs. He was famous for his role in Will and Grace, as well as smaller roles in The Help and Mr. and Mrs. Smith, but probably even more famous for his current Instagram following. You see, he was fantastic on social media, you guys. He was described to the New York Times as, quote, "not only a mega talent and a joy to work with, but he provided an emotional sanctuary to the nation at one of its most difficult times," end quote. You see, he started doing his reels during the pandemic and they just really took off. He seemed to really amuse himself with the videos as well, which is part of what made them so fun. He said that people would pull him aside to tell him how his videos helped them get through the hardest parts of the pandemic. And that made him realize that comedy actually is important. And is it ever? Rest in peace, Leslie. You will be dearly missed, but your light will continue to shine in the form of your videos, which will continue to keep us laughing long into the future. And lastly for today, we of course need to talk about Adidas dropping Kanye. So I wanted to issue a content warning here. This story discusses anti-Semitism.
The thing about it being Adidas is like, I could literally say anti-Semitic shit and they can't drop me. I could say anti-Semitic things and Adidas can't drop me. Now what?
Oh, but they did, y'all. After all the public pressure and the dip in their stocks, Adidas cut him off. Many are suggesting that the split had more to do with money lost than with the morality of Kanye's comments, but who can really say for sure? They are not the only ones, though. Not only did Adidas drop Kanye, but Kanye has also been dropped by his agency, who no longer want to represent him due to his anti-Semitic remarks. The Real will no longer be carrying his products. He's also been dropped off the Forbes billionaires list due to losing his Adidas partnership. And it turns out, you guys, that Adidas actually has Nazi origins. And I feel like I have to spread the word about this because I had no idea. But it turns out the founders of Adidas, which is a German company, had Nazi party membership. They signed their letters with Heil Hitler. And at one point, the factory was even staffed with forced laborers and made munitions for the Nazis in World War II. Woof. I'm never going to unhear that personally, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to buy Adidas things after hearing that. As you probably have already seen, his remarks inspired a modern Nazi demonstration in Los Angeles with a group hanging Nazi signs and literally doing the Heil Hitler on a busy highway overpass. Videos of his interview also have horrible comments in the comment section on TikTok that are just terrifying. And of course, this is why he is banned on multiple social media platforms at this point. There are people who obviously get inspired by this kind of rhetoric, which, again, I have to say is nothing new. He tries to always paint this as freedom of speech or thinking outside the box. This is not innovative idea at all. And that's what's so upsetting about it is that, this isn't thinking outside the box at all. That's actually what makes it so deplorable. What I can't wait to see is how Kanye will somehow try to make himself out as a victim here. I kid you not, that is coming. That is what's around the corner. He's going to paint himself as a victim, that everyone's ganging up on him, that cancel culture killed his career, when in reality, he killed his own career here. He chose to make multiple disgusting remarks, and now he is facing accountability for his actions. And that is called life, baby. And that is the news du jour. Today, I wanted to leave you guys with the quote, "Do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better." If you enjoyed this episode, please consider becoming a patron of our podcast. For $7.99 a month, you can unlock tons of perks like breaking news text messages so that you're never out of the loop. Tons of bonus episodes are already up there ready for you to binge, and a discussion board full of networking opportunities and much more. Go to www.patreon.com/sugarfreemedia today to become a patron. This is the best way to support our show. Our patrons make News du Jour possible. But a couple other ways to support our podcast are rate and review on whatever podcast platform you use to listen, share on your social media, you have influence, tell your friends, family, and colleagues that you love News du Jour and why you listen. You can also follow us on social media under sugarfreemedia.co on Instagram, just sugarfreemedia, all one word, on TikTok, and sugarfree_media on Twitter. We also have a weekend newsletter called Dreamers Digest that's full of dreamy content recommendations for your weekend and a life update from yours truly. Sign up today on our website, www.sugarfreemedia.co. Our music is by Joey Lavoie and Nicholas Foster. Our cover art is by Hannah Pierce Photography. Our Sugar Free Media logo is by Catherine Jesic Designs. Any twinkling or little footsteps you might hear in the background are by my dog, Rhett. He's a rescue pup and always records with me. We appreciate you listening and look forward to telling you about the news again next time on News du Jour.
Broadcasting from Oklahoma.